Welcome back to our channel, ladies and gentlemen. The President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, is making certain moves that are really very suspicious and are raising eyebrows. Ever since he took oath of office, he immediately began engaging in a conversation that is always hot potato. A discussion that many African presidents have always avoided because those who came before him and tried talking about such discussions are either dead or finished, annihilated politically. William Ruto is engaging in topics like African solutions to African problems. And without blinking, he is championing for a single currency for Africa, an African currency. And he's also talking about a united Africa with a free visa where an African fella is not compelled to produce another visa when he's going to another African country. And he has started criticizing the representation in the Permanent Security Council. These topics are not really welcome to the Western nation. And that's why I'm saying that these moves are really raising eyebrows, considering that William Ruto is a project and a child of the West. You see, when you see a child coming up to criticize the father in public, it is either the child is beginning to grow horns and the child wants to become rebellious, or the child is pursuing certain motives only known to the father. And this is what I'm saying, that William Ruto is working in a very precarious situation that we really need to unmask. Because for those who don't know William Ruto knows what to speak, where, and when. Listen to part of the conversation that I'm talking about.
Let me give you an example. Traders from Djibouti selling to Kenya, or traders from Kenya selling to Djibouti, have to look for US dollars. How is US dollars part of the trade between Djibouti and Kenya? Why? And we are saying that today, Afri-Exim Bank have given us a mechanism where traders in our continent can trade in their goods and services, and the Africa-Exim Bank will settle payments in local currency. That is why Kenya champions the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System that is done by our own institution, the Afri-Exim Bank. Why, members? Why is it necessary for us to buy things from Djibouti and pay in dollars? Why? There's no reason. And we are not against the US dollar. We just want to trade much more freely. Let us pay in US dollars what we are buying from the US. But what we are buying from Djibouti, let's use local currency. Let me also say, I am a very strong proponent of self-reliance. This is why I wholeheartedly subscribe to the principle of African solutions to African problems. We must exercise our full capacities and work with what we have. It so happens that these capacities are not modest and our endowments are immense. Unity of purpose and determined collaboration is our best way out of the many challenges that we face. It is here we must first look before seeking solutions outside, begging for help, or blaming the past for our failures. Do you know that only 5 countries of this world hold meaningful power in the UN Security Council. None of them is African. More than half of the world's population is not represented in the UN Security Council. It is neither democratic, it is not representative, it is not transparent, it is not accountable. As a result, it is unable to effectively respond to the pressing peace and security needs of the parts of the world most affected by conflict and insecurity in our global south. Its attitude to conflicts is geographically determined, and its intervention is likewise biased. In 2023, it should not be possible for the foremost institution of global governance to remain so egregiously exclusive and non-representative and claim to stand for any meaningful human norm. I stand before you to call upon African parliaments, including the men and women before me, to champion the implementation of appropriate institutions that effectively meet the challenge of our time. To be safe, to be stable, peaceful, and prosperous, we have to deepen democracy, enhance accountability, increase inclusion, strengthen the rule of law, and expand freedom.
You all understand that the West does not welcome any conversation that is surrounding a united Africa and having an African solution. When you talk about a single currency, you are trying to insinuate that you want to weaken the Western currency, the dollar, the euro, and all that. And if there is a conversation that the US and Britain and all these cannot spare, cannot stomach, and cannot tolerate, is this conversation about having a united currency. It is in the open if you ask those who have studied the politics of Africa and politics of the world, that one of the things that brought Muammar Gaddafi, the late Libyan president, one of the things that annihilated him was his persistence on the discussion about a united Africa. If there is one person who envisaged a united Africa, it was Muammar Gaddafi. But this discussion did not go down well with the West, because if Africa is united, then it means that we will be negotiating as a team. You know, Africa is a hub and is well endowed with natural resources. But the West continue to exploit our resources because they have decided to, they have managed to employ divide and rule system, where each and every African nation will stand alone. And you see, when we are not united, we fall, but united we are stronger. So when William Ruto comes up with such discussions, I'm sure he's getting into the nerves of the West, because he's giving, by the way, he's speaking something that is very genuine, something that is really worth discussing. That, for example, when Kenya is doing business with Djibouti, how is the dollar coming in? And part of the conversation is very tiny, because for Africa to continue relying on dollar, this is like being colonized by the West. And so this is why I'm telling you that it is not very easy, because the day Africa will unite, we will negotiate as a team. We will now be following the Nagoya Protocol when the West is coming to exploit our resources. And then having a united currency would mean that completely we shall abandon their dollar, because I remember one of the Pan-Africanist Party says the almighty dollar. It has become so big that you cannot trade, and this is something that William Ruto is talking about, and I have a feeling that is going to be very dangerous for him. a united Africa, free visa, and then he talks about the representation in the Permanent Security Council. For a very long time, the West understand that Africa is very important, but they don't want to include them among the Permanent Security Council. And William Ruto is saying that this is biased and there is lack of transparency and lack of accountability, something that I would really agree with. The reason why I'm saying that his statements are really confusing is this, ladies and gentlemen. William Ruto was handed over his presidency by the USA. Like many other African presidents, he is bound to dance to the Western tune. I'll give you an example. Just the other day, when Museveni signed the anti-LGBTQ law that has really placed him at loggerheads with the United States. In fact, as we speak, there are sanctions that have been placed by the USA, and the other European countries are considering the same. The Kenyan President William Samoei Ruto had to come through the back door, through the judiciary, and they allowed that the LGBTQ plus community has got the freedom of association. Yet in the constitution, the Kenya has outlawed LGBTQ, whether it is lesbian or gay. So while other African presidents are looking without blinking at the West and they're telling them that we have our culture, you cannot compel us to do what you want, William Ruto accepted LGBTQ. In as much as he says that he's a man of God, it came and it was passed. It was a ruling that was made by the highest court of the land, the Supreme Court. When William Ruto ascended to power, the first thing that he did was to lift the ban on GMO that had been placed by his predecessor, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. And even as we speak, William Ruto continues to work. He's taking quite huge loans from the IMF. He's forcing and imposing several unpopular. He is forcing and imposing unpopular tax and levies on the people. There is a lot of altercation between the opposition and William Ruto's government because he has introduced levies on housing levy. He has increased the VAT, value-added tax on fuel products that is now going to 16%. He wants to tax each and every person. And we all know that these are the dictates of the IMF. And William Ruto continues to work very slowly with the Western government. And this is why I'm saying that this is very confusing. He's like a child that is trying to rebel against the father. And it behoves one to ask, what is the intention of William Samoei Ruto? And I want to tell you that maybe William Ruto wants to endear himself to the African community, the African Union, so that they can consider him for a position. Because William Ruto is a go-getter. He is very ambitious. When he wants to get something, he is very calculative. He can be planning to get something in the next 10 years. He starts planning for it now. Maybe the head of the AU. And he has started now. And this is the reason why he has started speaking the language. I saw the African leaders there giving an applause and clapping for him and giving him a standing ovation. Because they don't know him. Those who know him will tell you that William Ruto is a very crafty president. So he could be eyeing a position and trying to endear himself to the African presidents. He is also behaving this way and acting to give a room to the other superpowers. He doesn't want to be seen as someone who is inclined towards America. Because we have the Russia and China and all this. They're already coming up with the BRIC system of payment. And so William Ruto knows very well that as a country and as a president, he cannot rely solely on the USA, because he has seen the kind of economic powers China, India and Russia is becoming. So he's giving them room to know that he's not really engraved and nailed towards America. And this is why he has started talking the language that seems to infuriate the West. And if this is not happening, because if at all he is trying to endear himself to the AU, and is also trying to give room to the East, then he cannot serve two masters. He will have to decide whether it is the USA and their cronies, or it is the East, because you cannot serve the two of them. One of the agendas why USA is trying to impose leaders in Africa is to try and eradicate the China influence. So you'll have to decide. And that takes me to the next point, that either William Ruto has been sent by the West to infiltrate the AU, to ensure that he engraves himself there, he spreads his wings and his roots, so that by the time they elect him as a leader, maybe the head of African Union or something, he will now champion the Western cause when he is inside. You see, when you want to ensure that you rule, you first become part and parcel of the people you want to rule. So I have got a feeling that, considering the fact that William Ruto was given and handed over his leadership by the West, he could be a project again, just like he was a project during the last election in Kenya. He could be a project in the African Union, so that once they have elected him, because now he's speaking a language that is very harmonious and to the ears, once they elect him, once he's got influence, then he will champion the agenda of the West without being seen. But if this will not happen, if he is not being sent by the West, then I can assure you that William Ruto is now on probation. The West is now looking at him in another angle, because they will not. Many leaders who came before him, who tried the very moves that he's making, are nowhere. And I don't think William Ruto is ready to face the very consequences that his predecessors faced. They gave him the victory, they can take it away, because he knows very well that we still have questions in the last Kenyan elections. And if you think I'm lying, dare the IEBC, the body that is mandated to manage elections in Kenya, dare them to open the servers, and you will know what I'm talking about. And so, ladies and gentlemen, experts are still weighing on why William Ruto is behaving this way, but from where I sit, those three possibilities could be the reasons why the Kenyan president is behaving this way. I've seen many Pan-Africans are saying that William Ruto is the man to watch, but from where I sit, I think is a project of the West again, trying to infiltrate Africa. And I don't know what you think. One thing that I'll support William Ruto on is speaking the truth, but I don't think he means what he's talking about, and that is my take.